Well, what's up again, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and welcome to another episode of Other People's Questions, where I answer all the questions you guys sent me over the past week. We got a pretty much bigger episode than we did last week, and I think we got maybe one or two newbies. So it's nice to see that the core followership of my weekly Q&A show is starting to grow, even if it is by bit. So starting off real simple with the first question coming from Macho Wesker 17. You want to know, if Wesker was a force sensitive, what type of Sith do I think he would be? I think he would be somewhere in the same sense of someone like a Palpatine. He's like a master manipulator, and I don't know, he just wants to control everything. I mean, they have similar personalities. It's just that Wesker in his base form just probably couldn't operate on such a grand scale as someone like Palpatine. So I honestly, I would say he would be exactly like Palpatine. So yeah. Next question comes from the Paper Knight, and you want to know, what kind of job would I want to play as myself in a Final Fantasy game? What would my magic, weapon, aesthetics would I use? Okay, I would be a knight. My main spell I would want to use is Ultima. I would carry a sword, and I'm not really sure what my aesthetic would be. There's just so many options. I don't know. I would probably just pick the best. You know, which one makes me look like the you know, which one I think makes me feel the most like a badass. But I mean, there's just so many options. It's hard to narrow it down to just one. Next question comes from Matt Cruz, who wants to know, what is the best ending plot twist that I have seen from a video game? The one that comes to mind the most is the one that happened at the end of Infamous 1. And, you know, I was thinking of whether or not I should spoil it, but since, you know, it is a pretty old game at this point, and it's unlikely most of you would go back and play it. The twist for that game was that the main villain of the game was an older version of yourself that actually came back in time, killed your girlfriend, which in his timeline was his wife, basically so he would force you to become a much stronger person, so that when the beast showed up in the second game, you would be somewhat more prepared for it, which I thought that was an incredible twist, because there's a moment where he kidnaps your girlfriend, which technically in his timeline is his wife, and puts you in a no-win scenario where no matter what you choose, she ends up dying anyway. So to be willing to go back in time and kill your primary love, to force your younger self to become a stronger person is just insane. Next question comes from, I believe, the first interview of the episode, coming from the name Silver Shadow 2099. You want to know, who do I think would win between Kain Highwind from Final Fantasy IV? I can't remember what her name was from 15, and Sid. Okay, well, Sid would definitely go down first. There's no question about that. And I think between the last two, I think ultimately Kain Highwind would come out the winner out of those three for sure. Next question comes from the Immortal Super Being, and you want to know, which town would be most dangerous to live in or terrifying to live in? Silent Hill or Raccoon City? Definitely Raccoon City, because if I'm there when the zombie outbreak's happening, I have until the sun comes out, until the place is nuked. I mean, don't get me wrong, Silent Hill's pretty bad, but, you know, there's several places I could hide in, and I would just be trying to get out. With Raccoon City, I could only stay there for a certain amount of time before I'm guaranteed to be killed. So, yeah, I think Raccoon City is a little bit more tense. Next question comes from YODA Date, and I don't even know who this character is you're mentioning from Tekken, but versus Scorpion. Obviously, I'm going to say Scorpion, and I'm going to say this right now. Tekken is for amateurs and little children. Tekken, Dead or Alive, Soul Calibur, that's all for little kids. Street Fighter is for teenagers. Mortal Kombat is for men. And I am a grown-ass man, so obviously Mortal Kombat is my game. Next question comes from Cassidy J. Williams. We want to know, is there any other Stephen King TVs or movie adaptations that I've seen? I'm sure there have been, but I can't really think of what they are. I'm not really a big Stephen King fan. Next question comes from Good Neutral Evil Chaos. You want to know, do I think that Mercer in Prototype 2 was not what the real Mercer was? Wait, what? Do I? Well, I gotta be honest with you, I didn't even play Prototype 2. I mean, I have Prototype 1, but it wasn't really good enough to the point that I cared what happened in Prototype 2, so I don't even think I can really answer that question, so yeah. Next question comes from Virgil, the son of Sparda. You want to know, if I could be part of the Kingdom Hearts universe and had to fight my Heartless or Nobody, how would I handle it? I would just beat it up. I would just do it the same way Sora did. Just beat it up and go on my merry little way. Next question comes from SERNA. You want to know, what are my thoughts on the Assassin's Creed video game and story of the games? I'm gonna be honest, I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game since Assassin's Creed 4. I think that was the last one I really played. I think I tried playing Rogue, but I couldn't quite finish it, but I'm probably gonna have to go back into it very, very soon because I have a very specific reason. But after that, I just think that the plot was just getting too convoluted. I mean, after Desmond was killed, I don't really see where else you could go with the story from that point on. I mean, I'm kind of sick of the whole Animus thing anyway. I would prefer them just make an Assassin's Creed game that just took place in the past. Why do we need the Animus? Why do we need to keep getting these stupid little artifacts of Eden? I mean, it's just ridiculous at this point. The next question comes from SANTIAGO SCARPINO. You want to know, do I think that there was any major Final Fantasy death that if averted, nothing major or the plot would change? Yeah, honestly, I think that had Aerith not been killed in Final Fantasy VII, I don't really think too much would have changed. I mean, if you just play that whole situation out where Aerith is praying, and then Sephiroth comes out of nowhere, and then Cloud, say, blocks the attack and tells Aerith to get out of there, and then the rest of the party shows up, and they get into a little scramble with the little Genova monster. I don't really think anything would have changed. I don't think, because she had finished calling for the Holy, or praying for the Holy, so when the time would come for the final battle to take place, if Aerith was there, her spell would still come through. I don't think her death really would have changed anything. I mean, whether she lived or died, that the power of the Holy was still going to come forth, so I don't really think her death really would have changed much. Next question comes from another newbie going by the name of King RIOLU Immortal. I hope I said that right. And you want to know, what is my favorite animated TV show of all time? Easy, South Park, hands down. Next question comes from Hunter Bros. And the first one wants to know, would I ever want to do a joke fight? If not, why? I'm not sure what you mean by a joke fight. Like get into like a joke fight with someone I know? Probably not, because I don't really know too many people I can hang out with to pull off a joke fight anyway, so that'd be kind of hard to pull off. And the next question comes from, would I play a DMC spinoff that focused on Virgil as a main character? Of course, Virgil is my favorite character in Devil May Cry, so obviously I would play a game with him in it. Next question comes from the next newbie of the episode, coming from the name MURLOC Lord, cool name. And he wants to know, would I ever do something close to an army versus army type matchup, say Resident Evil, Common, and Special Infected versus Left 4 Dead? The concept of doing armies is a little bit hard because there's so many factors. One, you'd have to look at the troop types, how many infantry do they have, what are their resources, where is this fight taking place? I mean, it's easy to analyze one-on-one, but to do entire armies, that's a little bit harder because you can't really decide exactly what type of fight are we talking about, because not all wars are conventional. Not all armies fight like that. And so I think doing an army on army would be just a little bit too difficult to pull off. Next question comes from The Black Struggle. You want to know, which superhero do I think has the worst villains? Wonder Woman, hands down. The old saying is always true when it comes to comic book characters. Your hero is defined by your villain. And Wonder Woman is the worst superhero ever made, ever created, who has the worst rogues gallery, if you can even call it that, ever. I can't think of a... who does she have? I mean, let's see. You got Batman and the Joker. You got Superman and Lex Luthor. Who the hell does Wonder Woman have? What, Ares, God of War? Well, he's not really a villain. He's the God of War. I mean, he's just doing his job. Who, Cheetah? Oh, okay, wow. A really, basically an exaggerated, cheap version of Catwoman, but she's literally a cat, or a cheetah, whatever. Who else? The Firstborn? Toy Maker? I mean, come talk to me when Wonder Woman has a legitimate villain. But other than that, yeah, I would say Wonder Woman has probably the worst set of villains ever. Next question comes from JBat. You want to know, am I surprised about the box office success of Black Panther? Not really, and personally, I don't really care. I've already forgotten about the movie by now and have no plans on ever watching it again. But if people are super excited that it made so much money in its first week, that's pretty cool. Hello? sorry about that. That's weird. I don't think that's ever happened before. Next question comes from Black Lady. You want to know, who do I think would win between Kratos and Sephiroth? I'd go with Kratos. I just think his feats of success are much grander than Sephiroth's. I mean, Sephiroth is designed to wipe out entire armies. I don't think he's designed to take on other godlike beings. And Kratos, without question, can wipe out people a lot more powerful in scope and scale than Sephiroth. I mean, some would say, well, what if he went into a safer mode? Then he might have a little bit of trouble. But in his base form, definitely Kratos. Next question comes from Marcus Reiner. Or REINIEN, I hope I said that right. I was looking at it before and want to get it right. And he wants to know, what is my favorite melee weapon from the Metal Gear Solid franchise? I'm gonna have to go with the sword that Raiden was using in Metal Gear Solid 2: The Sons of Liberty. Simply because I think a sword is, I would prefer a sword over a knife any day. And I just think the other ones are just a little bit too odd for me. But the sword that he had in that game was a lot more simpler, and I think I could handle it pretty well. So I would go with that sword, the ninja sword that Raiden had in Metal Gear Solid 2. And with that, those are all the questions that you guys sent for this episode. I'd like to thank all of you guys for making this episode possible. If you guys have any more questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. Make sure you get them into me for next Wednesday before I start filming the next episode. And like always, I want to thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.